Disclaimer. This story contains mature themes intended for adult viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. The moment I touched the door handle, her voice wavered behind me. Soft, uncertain, and threaded with something she didn't want to admit. The room was quiet, but the silence between us felt louder than any words spoken tonight. A warm glow from the lamp brushed over her face, revealing a tension in her eyes that had been building long before either of us acknowledged it. I told her calmly, "I'll leave if you want." Maybe I meant it. Maybe I hoped she'd stop me. She didn't speak. She simply stood there, staring at me like she was trying to read every thought I wasn't saying out loud. The air between us carried a quiet heat. Nothing reckless, nothing loud. Just that slow pull you feel when someone matters more than you're ready to confess. Her fingers twitched, like she was fighting the impulse to reach for me, to ask me to stay without actually saying it. And for a moment, I almost stepped out, thinking it was better to walk away than keep circling this unspoken electricity that had followed us for weeks. But then she moved. One step, then another, close enough that I could feel the warmth of her breath brush my collar. She reached out. Not rough, not desperate. Just gently enough that I felt every intention in the way her hand curled around my shirt. She looked up, eyes carrying all the things she never allowed herself to say, and whispered with a trembling certainty, "Then don't." Something in the room shifted. Not dramatic, not explosive, just real, honest. A moment where two people finally stop pretending they don't feel what's been simmering under every conversation, every accidental touch, every stolen glance. It wasn't forbidden love, but it carried the weight of something complicated. Something that scared both of us for reasons we still weren't ready to admit. And as I stood there, her fingers gripping just enough to keep me from stepping away, I knew whatever happened next would change everything. Not in some dramatic movie way, but in the quiet, dangerous way that only real feelings can. And that's where the story begins. Right at the edge of a choice neither of us is sure we're ready to make. Her hand didn't loosen. If anything, her grip softened but deepened. Like she wasn't holding me back. She was holding on. I could feel the warmth of her fingers through the fabric, steady but trembling just slightly, betraying just how much she meant those two words. Then don't. For a long moment, neither of us said anything. The silence wasn't empty. It felt full, charged, humming between us like something alive. Her eyes lifted slowly, searching mine as if she wanted to know whether I'd pull away, whether I'd pretend the moment meant nothing. But I wasn't moving. Couldn't. Not when she was looking at me like that, half brave, half terrified, and completely real. "You don't have to stay," she whispered, though the way her thumb brushed my shirt quietly begged the opposite. "I know," I murmured, my voice lower than I intended. "But I'm here." The words seemed to settle in the small space between us, and she breathed in, the kind of breath someone takes right before admitting something they've been carrying for far too long. Her other hand hovered for a second, uncertain, then gently touched my forearm. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't bold, but it sent a slow warmth across my skin, pulling me closer without actually moving me. "I don't know what I'm doing," she admitted, voice soft but unsteady. I didn't want you to walk out. Not tonight." Her honesty hit something deep inside me. She wasn't playing games. She wasn't pretending. She was finally letting the wall crack just enough for me to see through it. I took a slow breath, feeling the heat of her closeness sink deeper into my thoughts. "I wasn't walking away from you," I said quietly. "I was walking away from the confusion." She let out a faint, breathy laugh. Not mocking, just aching. "And here I am, making it more confusing." "No," I said. "You're making it clear." Her gaze held mine a second too long, warm, vulnerable, wanting. She didn't lean in, and I didn't either. But the pull was there, unmistakable, drawing us closer even in stillness. Every tiny movement, her fingers releasing and then lightly catching the fabric of my shirt again, her breath brushing the space between us, the faint shift of her weight when her shoulder almost touched my chest, built a tension that felt both dangerous and safe all at once. Whatever held us back, fear, timing, uncertainty, was still there. but so was everything pulling us forward. And neither feeling was letting go. Her fingers finally loosened, but only so she could step back half a pace. Just enough space to breathe, not enough to break whatever had wrapped itself around us. The moment she moved, the air shifted, cooler where her warmth had been, and it made something inside me tighten. She didn't turn away, though. She stood there, arms folded lightly across her chest as if trying to hold in the things she was afraid to let out. "I shouldn't," she murmured, eyes falling to the floor for a second. "This whole thing, it's complicated." There it was, the wall. The one she kept hidden under soft smiles and carefully measured words. I'd felt it before, every time she changed the subject, every time she laughed instead of answering something real. Tonight, she didn't hide it. She let the weight of it sit between us. "What's complicated?" I asked gently. She took a slow breath, steadying herself. "Everything." Her voice shook just barely. "You and me. The timing. What I'm scared of. What I'm trying not to feel." I stepped closer, not touching her, but close enough that she looked up on instinct. Her eyes flicked between mine, searching, as if waiting for me to pull her into something she wasn't sure she could survive. "You don't have to explain," I said softly. "But I want to," she whispered, and that confession felt heavier than anything else she could have said. Her hand lifted slightly, like she wanted to reach out but didn't trust herself. Her fingers hovered near my chest, a breath away, shaking with hesitation. If she touched me again, even lightly, I wasn't sure either of us would stop. She must have felt the same, because she let her hand fall before she connected. "I've lost people," she said quietly. "Good people. And every time I start caring again, I feel like I'm standing on a cliff." "And you think I'm a cliff?" I asked. She gave a small, painful smile. "No. You're the fall." For a heartbeat, I almost leaned in. Not for a kiss, just to rest my forehead against hers. Just to let her know she didn't have to fall alone. She felt the shift. Her breath caught, her lips parted slightly, and her eyes flickered down, just for a second, before she stepped back again, breaking the moment with a soft exhale. "I can't," she whispered, voice trembling. "Because I want to." The honesty hit like heat. Slow, deep, impossible to ignore. Neither of us moved. Neither of us dared. The longing sat between us like a heartbeat we were both trying to quiet. But neither of us wanted it to stop. She stood there, breathing too softly for someone who wasn't affected. The room felt smaller than it had minutes ago, like the air itself had tightened around us. Every faint sound, the hum of the lamp, the distant traffic outside, melted into the background. All I could focus on was her. The way her chest rose unevenly, the way her eyes kept drifting to my mouth without meaning to, the way her fingers curled as if fighting the urge to reach again. "I hate this," she whispered. "Hate what?" I asked, stepping closer, slowly, carefully, like approaching something fragile. "The way you make everything feel." She pressed her lips together, searching for a word that didn't exist. "Too much." Her voice cracked on the much, so quietly I almost missed it. I didn't touch her. I didn't dare. But I stood close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating off me, close enough that her breath stumbled when she looked up. "You think it's easier for me?" I murmured. Her eyes softened, then sharpened with something deeper, something that scared her more than anything she'd said. "If I let myself want this." She paused, shaking her head. "I don't know where it ends." "Maybe it doesn't," I said gently. Her breath hitched, just that. A small, involuntary sound that felt louder than any confession. She took a half step forward. It wasn't enough to touch, but it erased the space where hesitation usually lived. Her hand lifted again, trembling fingertips grazing the edge of my sleeve. So light I barely felt it, but enough for her to realize what she'd done. Her gaze snapped to mine, wide, overwhelmed. "I'm scared of you," she said softly. The words hit me, not as an accusation, but as the rawest truth she'd given me yet. "I'd never hurt you," I whispered. "That's what scares me." She exhaled shakily, as though giving the fear a voice had cracked something inside her. And for a heartbeat, one slow, breathtaking heartbeat, she leaned closer, not into my arms, not into a kiss, but into the gravity pulling us together. Her forehead almost touched mine. Almost. I felt the warmth of her breath against my lips. She froze, caught between surrender and restraint, between yes and not yet. The nearness was devastating. Beautiful. Too much. Her eyes fluttered closed. And then, she whispered, barely audible, "Tell me I'm not imagining this." My voice came out rough. "You're not." She opened her eyes, full of fire, fear, wanting. And that's where everything stopped. Right at the edge of something neither of us knew how to step into, but both of us were moments away from falling into completely. The moment hung between them, fragile, trembling, unbearably alive, until something outside shifted. A soft rumble rolled across the sky, low and distant, followed by the first shy taps of rain against the window. She didn't move at first. Neither did he. But the storm changed something, softened something, like the world outside had dimmed itself so they could finally stop resisting what had been building for so long. Her breath came out unsteady, brushing his lips without touching them. "I can't keep pretending," she whispered. He didn't answer. He just lifted his hand, slowly, giving her every chance to step back, and touched the side of her face. The warmth of his palm seemed to unravel her. Her lashes lowered, her body leaned instinctively into his touch, and the smallest sound escaped her. Half sigh, half surrender. When she opened her eyes again, something unspoken passed between them, quiet and certain. She stepped forward until her body met his. Not urgently, not hungrily, just completely, as if she'd been holding herself back for too long and finally let herself breathe. His other hand slid to her waist, anchoring her gently, and she melted into the space she had always avoided. His arms, his warmth, his closeness. Her forehead rested against his cheek, her breath trembling as it skimmed his skin. "You feel like home," she whispered, barely audible over the rain. He tightened his hold just briefly, enough to tell her he felt the same without forcing a single word. Their bodies fit together with a kind of quiet inevitability. Two people who had spent so long pulling away that the closeness now felt like relief, like release. The room grew warmer, dimmer, softer. The rain deepened outside, tapping steadily against the windows as if keeping rhythm with their breaths. She lifted her hand to his chest, fingers curling into the fabric of his shirt, then sliding upward until they rested over his heartbeat. She felt it, fast, unguarded, answering her own. He dipped his head, not for a kiss, but to let his lips brush her temple, the gentlest contact, sending a shiver through her. She turned her face toward him, and their noses grazed light, trembling, almost reverent. Her breath melted into his, warm and slow, blurring the lines between them. When his hands slid up her back, her body responded instinctively, leaning into him with a softness that felt like a confession in itself. She didn't stop him. She didn't want to. Her fingers traced his jaw, hesitating only for a heartbeat before following its line, learning him by touch the way words never could. He whispered her name against her skin, and her eyes fluttered closed, her lips parting on a breath she couldn't steady. The sound wasn't loud. It wasn't desperate. It was intimate, too intimate to take back. "Tell me to stop," he murmured. She shook her head slowly, her forehead brushing his. "I can't. Not tonight." Their bodies spoke the rest. The longing, the fear, the hunger, the relief. Every touch was slow. Every movement was careful, tender, honest. They didn't rush. They didn't hide. They simply let go. Emotion against emotion, warmth against warmth. Hearts finally speaking the words neither had dared to say out loud. Nothing explicit passed between them, but the night unfolded like a quiet storm, soft, consuming, inevitable, until all that remained was breath, closeness, and the kind of intimacy that didn't need to be seen to be understood. The morning didn't come gently. It crept in through the blinds as a quiet, pale light, the kind that softens everything it touches but leaves nothing hidden. She was the first to stir, her breath catching for a moment as reality slid back into place around her. Not regret, just the weight of something delicate and enormous settling over her chest. The room felt different now, not because of anything physical, but because the air between them had changed. It wasn't charged like last night. It wasn't burning. It was tender, too tender. He lay beside her, awake but still, as if afraid that moving would shatter the fragile peace. When she finally turned her head, their eyes met for a moment that held more truth than either of them had dared speak aloud. "Morning," he whispered. Her lips curved, though the smile never fully formed. "Hey!" Silence settled in again, not uncomfortable, but full of questions neither knew how to ask yet. She looked away first, drawing in a slow breath as if bracing herself. "What are you thinking?" he asked softly. She hesitated. "That last night felt like something we weren't ready for." Then she swallowed, voice dropping. "But also like something we couldn't stop." His expression tightened with understanding. He reached for her hand, hesitant, offering instead of taking. She let his fingers thread with hers, their palms resting together like something familiar and strange all at once. "I don't want you to think it was a mistake," he said. "I don't," she whispered quickly. Too quickly. Then quieter. "That's the problem." He watched her closely. "You're scared again." She nodded. "Because I don't know what this is now." "This morning." "You." He gently tugged her hand, guiding her closer until her forehead rested against his chest. She let herself lean into him, her breath steadying as his heartbeat settled under her ear. The intimacy was softer now, but deeper. And then 3 sharp knocks at the door. She stiffened immediately, lifting her head with a kind of panicked alertness. "No one's supposed to come today," she whispered. He sat up, frowning. "Do you want me to check?" Before he could stand, a voice called from the hallway. Familiar, unexpected, too close. "Hello? You home? We need to talk." Her eyes widened, fear flashing across her face. Not fear for safety, but fear of truth. "Who is that?" he asked. She closed her eyes, breath shaking. "My past," she whispered. "The one I never told you about." And just like that, the morning softened into something sharper. Still intimate, still fragile, but now threaded with the weight of secrets finally demanding to be seen. She didn't move at first. The knock still echoed in the walls, shaking loose the parts of her she had tried so hard to bury. He could see it, the fear, the guilt, the storm behind her eyes. But he didn't push. He simply sat beside her, the warmth of his hand still wrapped around hers, steady and patient. "Do you want me to leave?" he whispered. The question hung in the air like a held breath. Her eyes lifted to his, and for a moment she looked exactly like she had the night before. Vulnerable, trembling, but full of something fierce she didn't know how to hold. "No," she said softly. "Not this time." She stood, breath shaking, and walked toward the door. He followed, not close, but close enough that she could feel him behind her, like a promise she hadn't realized she needed. When she opened the door, the man standing there froze. Familiar tension filled the space between them, sharp and unspoken. But she didn't step back. She didn't fold. She simply said, "You don't get to walk into my life whenever you want. Not anymore." He blinked, taken aback. "We need to talk." "No," she replied with calm strength. "I needed to heal, and I am. Finally." Silence pressed heavy between them. The man at the door nodded once, defeated, maybe relieved, and walked away without another word. She closed the door gently. When she turned, her breath left her in a trembling sigh. He stood where she left him, unsure, worried he might have just become collateral in a story that wasn't his. She walked toward him slowly. "I thought I owed him something," she said. "An explanation, closure. But I don't. Not anymore." Her voice softened, warm as morning light. "I'm choosing what feels right, and last night felt right." He stepped closer, but not to claim, only to offer. His hand rose, fingers brushing her cheek with the kind of tenderness that makes a person break and heal in the same breath. She leaned in, her forehead resting against his chest, his chin touching the crown of her head. "You can leave," she whispered finally, the words from the title, the ones that once meant fear. His arms wrapped around her, slow and sure, pulling her into a soft, steady embrace. "Not if you want me here," he murmured. Her sigh melted into him, warm and relieved. "Then don't," she breathed. And for the first time it wasn't desperation, it was peace. Not fireworks, not a whirlwind, just two people choosing each other in the quiet morning light. Together,